perfect conditions today. It's like 17 degrees. So the ground is frozen and my poles aren't sticking in the terrain. It's my first time out this year that we've had decent snow. Some tracks here. This is all fenced in. This used to be open, but last spring Rich put in the permanent fence. Oh, it's so nice out. That was kind of a wet patch there. Ski's got a little logie. It's usually really wet back here, so that's why I like to wait until it's down in the teens. Otherwise it gets kind of wet and muddy. So now I'm entering the little trail that Rich and I cut a couple years ago. And now I think about my friend Chris, who was cutting trail on her property. This we did with our tractor and chain, because this was all covered with shrubs like that. And there's a little pond inside here some guy made, and you can see all the tracks. Look at it. Got deer, bunny, foxes. We did catch a coyote, picture of a coyote on our trail cam, but no video footage. It was odd because he was alone. I'll actually try and pop a clip of him up here. My skis have now become snowshoes because there's wet snow on the bottom of them. I cut this trail just by hand for hiking, but it hasn't been dry enough to be able to go back there. Little willow tree. There's an island in the center. And this is the access trail to get to the power lines. There's a right-of-way. One of these days I'll get back there and clean it better so I can ski through there. It's really wet. It's usually got a couple, 3 or 4 inches of standing water there, so it has to be good conditions to get at it. Trail for critters. The snow's covering up a lot of the tracks now. There's some big ones. Heading out there to get some water, maybe. It's probably frozen. It's so pretty. Sorry, no critter sightings. Once in a while you'll see a deer back there, but not today. It's right around noon. My yoke. Tree's been there a while, I think. Alright, let's go check this out. I hate you guys. Thorns. Whoa, that would hurt if I fell in that. Oh my gosh. Ooh, stinky. I smell some sort of a musky smell here. So it's the end of January, and like most years, point in time, I am completely out of raw fleeces. So I've either sold them or I've processed them myself or whatever. So I'm at the bottom of the barrel as it relates to wool for me to play around with. So what I did was I found these 4 plastic containers, pretzel containers, that I just kind of shoved wool in at some point over the year, washed wool. And normally it's stuff that it's just not as good as the wool I'm working on, lower quality in terms of fineness or length or whatever, and I don't throw it away. I'll just tuck it in one of these bins for later on, like right now when I'm kind of desperately looking for something to work on. So what I want to do right now is I want to just kind of go through each of them and see where I want to put them, whether I want to keep them in my curly bits collection for my lambs. So this is some of when I make those lambs or the lamb kits, these short, really tightly curled bits are perfect for the fleeces. And those little fanciful lambs that I make. So I've already got actually a bin of curly bits already sorted out and organized. And then I just have like random, like this here, this is part of my lace experiment. So I think this is 0.25 ounces of Caitlin that I'm going to use for that experiment. It's going to go on the wheel. But I mean, I really don't have like a good hank of fiber. So I'm going to just see what's in here. Here's the first one of the 4. And it does have a label on the top that I made. So hopefully this is what it says it is. It says it's curly bits out of Mary Ann's fleece from 2017. So Mary Ann, unfortunately, isn't on the farm anymore, and I regret it because she had a really fine fleece and it was really nice to spin, but it was always so short. Well, now I'm starting to think that maybe this discovery I made about our sheep ruing, she might have been one that rued and would have been a good candidate for ruing, and maybe then her fibers wouldn't have been so short, her staple length. So yeah, this definitely looks like Mary Ann. It's washed really short, so I probably got frustrated trying to card this because it was really curly and really short. So I do think still that this would work really good in curly bits. And if not, if I sort through it and find that there's pieces of it that I don't want to use in the curly bits, I'll put them in the comb top bag where I'm storing up enough to get the minimums to make another run at Xylingers for their comb top. All right, so this is in fact curly bits of Mary Ann, and I'll use this probably for the Valet lambs. I don't know if you've seen those, they're super cute. For those lamb kits. And I need 0.25 ounces for each kit, and there's definitely going to be a good amount here. It's curly and so soft, but too short. Too short to flick. It's just frustrating. You don't get hardly any output off of it. So that'll stay in this little correctly labeled curly bits. This one is a little bit longer. I might set this aside and put this on the flicking. Hey, yeah, I'm going to flick this. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't know why that got pushed in there. I mean, the tips are curly. It would be good for the lambs. But as I said, I'm kind of looking for stuff to spin, so I think I might. Now, like I said, this is probably compared to the whole fleece as I was processing it back over the summer when I was rich in fleeces. This was maybe a little bit too coarse to throw in with the other stuff, but beggars can't be choosers anymore, so. And it's not coarse at all. I mean, it feels really nice. So this I'm going to throw on the flicking table. Flick up that. This is short stuff. Here's why I think Mary Ann was ruing. That big blob of wool there on the top that's all clumped up. That's last year growth. It just comes right off. So I'm thinking that I maybe got ripped off on some of the wool from the base because we sheared her too soon, and I should have root her after shearing time. Perfect for curly bits though. More curly. Curly, curly. So more short curly bits. This section should get thrown on the skirting table because that's not that short. I could work with that. Isn't this fun? Finding all these treasures in here. Stuff I can use. Definitely short curly bits. And I'm just going to keep all this white stuff together so that I can just use this exclusively for the Valet sheep. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. I need to research that breed a little. I'm just fascinated by them because they're so cute. However, their wool does not look like it'd be soft. It almost looks like a long wool. And I really prefer, I know there's a place for everything. I just really like the fine wool. Short curly bits. There's a little patch of gray somehow got in here, so I'll put that. I'm going to start a gray pile. No idea who it's from. Definitely curly. Very tightly coiled. Here's some of Marianne where she gets darker. It's a little bit of darker wool. Ooh, that's going to get carded too, I think. Yep, carding. And then just some more short bits. This is second cut. It sort of fell in. Super short. That will go into the quilt batting. Alright, so there's where I'm going to have my creamy curly bits. Now I found this little handful of brown curly wool, which, just a little handful. I wonder how much it is. If it's 0.25, I'll put it in the brown curly bits for another kit. You guys getting sick of hearing me say curly bits. 27.27 ounces. So it's actually the perfect amount for curly bit, but boy oh boy, maybe I will card it out. Problem is my well, maybe I'll just card it into locks and post it, list it that way, or maybe I'll use it for some of my self-striping yarns. So I think I'm going to flick this. This is just another section of it. So that's going to get carded. Alright, so that's that one. I'm actually going to put these creamy curly bits in there, so they're all going to go into the same type of kit. So that's my creamy curly bits. Curly bits. This one. This one I have not gone through in a while. I don't have any idea what's in here. Well, it's somebody that I was just disgusted with for some reason, because this is all from one fleece. So as I'm just evaluating it, and you guys might recognize this too if you're watching me, if you watch my evaluation of fleeces and stuff. So there's nothing wrong with this. However, I can see why I didn't card it up when I had other stuff, and that is that crimp is just a little bit bold for me, more wavy than crimpy, and it isn't as fine. However, it's really clean. There's barely any VM in here. There's tips. You know what it looks like to me? A really soft Romney fleece. If I were just evaluating it, judging it in a show. And then look at this. So this piece here is attached to this larger section. Good length, but a finer crimp. Oops, sorry. Good length, but a much finer crimp. And so, what I think I'm going to do with this, let's see how much it is. There's a few remnants. Interesting. This is more gray, and that's a different sheep. I can totally tell. We'll look at that in a second, though. I'm just looking to see if there's other pieces that might have gone with this one. This one certainly would go with that. It's back in there. So what I think I'll do is I'll just post this on my site as is. For those of you that flick, if you need some nice clean, this is already washed, fiber that looks like that I would characterize it as a nice, soft, shorter staple Romney. 2.4 ounces. I'm just going to list it. And then if it doesn't go and I'm running low on wool, I'll look it up myself. So that's the plan for that little pile. I'm going to go get a notepad and mark that, what I'm going to do with it, and then put it in a bin. Notepad, schmotepad. Notepad, schmotepad. I actually have little scraps and bits of paper that I'm going to use to mark them. So I'm going to find a plastic bin that's empty. To say list as washed wool. What I said the weight is 2.4 ounces. I'm gonna guess the micron on this is like 26. With the standard deviation, it probably is gonna get it above 30, but still very nice. All right, so that's off on its own. Okay. This is crazy soft. I'm trying to remember who this could be. This could be Sarin, because Sarin has these real aggressive, they're really separated tips. I don't know. And the tip extends quite a ways down into the fiber. So we had a ram once called Leyland, and he was out of a specific line, and anything that has come out of him I have just not been in love with. It's just got an enormous amount of tip. Oops. And then it's also not real crimpy. More weavy. I mean, it's still bouncy. It's still. However, that's probably why that's in here. And this. The other thing about it is that these tips are really hard to flick. It does a number on my wrists. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this right in the comb top bag of, I don't know. How much is that? It's only like 0.4 ounces. So once I flick all that stuff off, I'm just going to have like a tiny, although it would look really good in my self-striping yarns. I'm going to be miserable flicking this. I'm going to put it in the comb top. I'm going to go do that right now. I put it in with the more brown stuff. Okay. All right, so there's still a little tiny bit of stuff left in here. I sort of already looked at it, but another look. This says curly bits, so I must have labeled these as curly bits at some point in time. And I don't know why I labeled this as a curly bit. It's really nice. But again, like I said, all the stuff had to have been less good than what I was working on, because this was the stuff I was tossing. But it's, I don't know, I'm having a hard time not liking this. I'm going to flick it. It's a small quantity. But yeah, I think I'm going to flick this and then use it in probably in my self-striping yarns, because I only need a small amount for each color. So I'm going to throw that on the flicking table. That's good. Okay, so here's an empty bin for my next. So this says Darkmoor, but that's not what this is, because that is, I used to put my Fair Isle kits in these. Good enough. And it doesn't have any markings on it at all. So no indication as to why this got relegated into one of these bins. Oh, I know what it is. This is all neck wool. So this is all. So you guys, with what I do on neck wool, and once sharing is done, we'll do a skirting video. If I have, I don't know if I did one already. But what I do when I skirt the fleece is, I take all the wool that's neck wool, and it's very easy to identify it on a fleece when you've got it laid out. And I just tear that off, and that gets skirted or removed from the main fleece. And that will, I'll put it in a separate bag by color, but all the neck wool gets pulled. I don't keep it and identify it by each individual ewe. That's just too fiddly, and I'll have too many separate bags. So I put all the neck wool in one pooled bag of wool. This is really nice right here. And I will then wash it in a pile with all the color. So this is all fawn. This one I'm wondering who this was. I always do that too then, because I don't identify the fiber. But then I look at it and like, oh boy, I think this was Sienna. Because she had more of a bolder crimp. We don't have her on our farm anymore. Even though I desperately loved her. God, she was a good ewe. She's at a farm that's quite close to us. So, but she had more of what we called the bolder crimp. It's still really soft, and just a beautiful color. She was this not quite brown, not quite fawn, just a nice dark taupey gorgeousness. So I've got this, and I'm not 100% sure that it's her, but I'm 63% sure that this is from Sienna. Let's see how much it is. So it's almost 2 ounces. So you know what I could do? So this, I think I'm gonna flick it and then once my drum carder comes in, if it ever comes in from Magicraft, I'll make it into a bat. But until then, I'll list it as just flicked locks, and if anybody wants to spin from the lock, that'll be that. So that's, I'm going to put it back in here because all this stuff is going to get put on the carding table once I clear off what's on there. So yeah, so these are all just hunks of neck wool. This is really nice. This is what I like. So this is what we're after in terms of fineness and quality. It's really pretty. And after stretching it, it's really not that short. Where'd that come from? That came off of this one. So, oh, it's not even an ounce. But I think I'll separate. I think I'm going to flick these all up as separate blobs because they are together. You can tell it's all from one. And then list the locks right out of the gate. And then once my carder comes in, if I have 1 ounce quantities, I'll go from there. This one I'm going to bet is from Dowager Countess. Just has that. She had sort of like a cottony feel. And then she had sections on her neck where the fibers were fairly short but really crimpy. She ended up getting mastitis and actually lost the udder. I told this story before. So we moved her on to another farm where she's just being spoiled and not being bred. There's just a little scrap of neck wool that I couldn't bear to throw away. I'll be going through this. If it's too short, then I'll put it in the quilt batting one. And ugh, I don't like this one at all. I don't like this hairy. I don't know how this would have been neck wool. This is. It's snuck over. I don't know. It's. I don't like to say bad things about my sheep, but I don't know who the hell that came from. I don't know who the heck that came from. Here's a piece. I don't know. Not all of my breeding stock. You know, some of the older, early generation stuff is still in the flock. It's still producing beautiful lambs, but their fleeces aren't necessarily. What bothers me the most about this one is, yeah, I was able to get some really nice fine chunks from this section, but on that same piece is this really hairy. I don't know. We'll see what we do with that. I'm not going to make a decision right now, but I mean, I can just tell this is what I like. It's really squishy and lovely and soft as anything. This actually looks like it was rude because the tips have this cloudy quality. The tips, I don't mean tips, I mean the skin side just has this sort of cloudy poofiness to it. Meaning that it wasn't cut with a scissors, it was just sort of extracted off the body through ruing. See if I can open this up a little and get at some of the locks. So there's the lock end. Yeah, you probably people are watching this and it's like, they all look exactly the same. But they don't. One of them has got its own unique beautifulness. I'm going to work on this one next. Oh, it's so soft and nice. And this is also like that, more like that. Darker section. So yeah, so I think what I'm going to do here until my carder comes in from Magicraft, which who knows when that's going to be, is I'm just going to start flicking and listing flicked locks, maybe in 1/2 ounce packets. That way, if you'd like, you can kind of get a variety. I don't know who any of these are from, so they're just going to be called, I just call them neck wool because I don't know who the donor sheep is. Okay, so here is a plastic container full of what looks to me like black wool. So I don't know how that happened because black wool is something I really like to work with and it's really popular. So how do I have this massive container of black wool that has not been carded? I don't know. Is it maybe a ram? It's not a ram. Even when you wash ram wool, you can still have this. There's this lower level of like a rancid soap smell, especially with the adults, which this doesn't have. So this is probably just black neck wool. It's all clinging together, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's all from the same sheep. It does all look like the locks are, just doing a quick eyeball, the locks look shortish. Well, maybe not. And it does work. If I get my face out of the camera, it seems like it focuses better. Alright, so I do have some black neck wool here to work through. The only thing about it is it's not like in a nice... I like it when the locks are like organized and you can just lay it out. This I'll have to fiddle with and kind of straighten it out. I probably should comb it. That's what I'll do. Maybe I'll get the combs out and put this through the combs. The reason I'm thinking that is because when the locks aren't nice and organized and I can access them quick to flick them, and I have to spend a lot of time doing this to get it in shape, I get really irritated. And so if I'm just going to lash these onto combs, it doesn't really matter if they're organized. Nice and soft. And so then maybe I'll just offer some comb top, which I've never done before. And there's a lot of wool here. But there's some second cuts that are still in here. And you wonder why there's little bits of wool all over the floor. Yeah, pull that one out. So yeah, so that was a fun little treasure hunt. Trying to find beautiful little morsels of wool. So for the last time I'm going to finally say this is that what I'm going to do between now and when my carder comes in is I'm going to flick up locks and offer them in half-ounce packets by color. Here's a piece of Timothy. If you remember Rich talking about hay, that's what Timothy looks like. And those little seeds, once they get out, are awful to get out of your wool. This little clip I took was late in the afternoon, getting close to when it's time to feed them. And this happens almost every day. The lambs and some of the yearlings, they just get in this crazy mood and bounce around and play around and stuff. I'm not really sure what it's about. And anytime I go out towards the fence so I can get a better shot, they stop and stand and stare at me. So I just thought this was really fun. You might enjoy it. This is Whispering Pines Ivy, and she's a 2016 ewe, born in the year where we named all the sheep after Downton Abbey characters. She's a great cat mugget. And she's out of 2 cat muggets. Pamela was a fawn cat mugget, and her sire was Mr. Darcy, who was a gray cat mugget with a really pretty fleece. So this year we bred her to Loki, who was a black ram. And Ivy, I actually have a set mix on YouTube of all the songs that have our sheep's names in them. And Ivy reminds me of, my sisters were fans of the Mamas and the Papas. They were 10 years older than me. So of course I was a fan of the Mamas and the Papas, and that song Ivy, it can take up all your time to fall in love with Ivy. I always think of that whenever I spend time with her. So she's got a really pretty fleece. I know I've sold her fleece to people in the past, and it's really nice. So let's just take a look at it. If you can let me. Thank you. The one thing about Ivy's fleece is it's really a good size. Just so pretty. Nice and fine, just what we like. Let's see if she's not coming off too easily, but a little ruin there. Let's see, I just want to take a picture of it. It's just a really pretty fleece. She's got a lot more light fiber. There's not as much dark on her, which is fine. That's not a flaw or anything. Oh, boy, look at me. Kind of a liar. See, this is nice and dark. She just will not move for me at all. So as you get further back, it gets a little bit darker. She has a lot more britch than most of our other sheep. So yeah, so that's Ivy. Let's see if we can get a nice picture of you. You're fine. Thank you. This is a picture of Ivy from Downton Abbey. Everybody always questions her. She was only in the first season. This is Pamela, her mother. And this is Mr. Darcy, her sire. Nice gray cat nugget. This is Ivy as a baby. She's in the foreground. And here she is as a lamb over the summer. This is her fleece from last year. You can see how nice and thick and dense it is. And then her average fiber diameter data. So she's below the 30 micron threshold. And this is Loki, who we bred her with this year.